can confirm that there was a shooting incident this morning at the home of the well-known Paralympic athlete Oscar Pistorius. At this stage, we can confirm that a young woman, a 30-year-old woman, did die on the scene of gunshot wounds. A 26-year-old man has been arrested and has been charged with murder.
In the dock, the world's most famous Paralympic athlete, Oscar Pistorius. The victim, his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp, a model about to hit the big time, the latest star of network television.
You fall in love with being in love with love. It's just one love everywhere.
But was it, as the state alleges, premeditated murder? Or was it, as Oscar Pistorius claims, an innocent but dreadful mistake?
All he said to me was, there's been a terrible accident. Riva's been shot. I've shot Riva.
I'm Rick Edwards and I'm flying 6,000 miles from London to South Africa to find out more about the case that stunned the world.
This was by far one of her favourite dresses.
For the last 2 weeks I've spoken to people close to both Oscar and Riva.
She was just the most incredible, bubbly person.
Enough will never ever be enough for him, in the sense that he will always drive himself to achieve better.
With computer graphics, we recreate Pistorius' house, and a defence forensic pathologist gives his first TV interview.
She was shot in the region of her right hip. She was shot in the right arm, and she was shot in the head.
Is there a darker side to the Blade Runner?
Yes, he threatened me. Yes, he was aggro, and yes, he was very aggressive on the phone, and yes, he did threaten to break my legs.
Over the years, I think as more as fame and success and money came into his life, I saw a very different Oscar.
Oscar Pistorius spent Valentine's night in a cell in this police station. I've got a copy of his charge sheet here. The accused did unlawfully and intentionally kill Riva Steenkamp. I've come to South Africa to find out how and why this tragic event unfolded. I want to find out what really happened. Last September I was at the Olympic Stadium in London presenting coverage of the Paralympics. Millions of viewers across the globe watched as Oscar Pistorius won 2 gold medals, a silver medal and set 3 world records along the way. He was the poster boy for the Paralympics. It's hard to believe then that just 6 months later things have changed so dramatically. The sporting hero is now a murder suspect. Travelling across South Africa, it's hard to understand how a story of modern-day celebrity romance could end in such a way. But it was here, in the pitch-dark early morning of St. Valentine's Day, that this secure, quiet suburban estate was woken by shouts, screams and sobs coming from the house of one of South Africa's most famous sons. Oscar Pistorius has shot his new girlfriend, hitting her at least 3 times. He says it's an accident. He's mistaken her for a burglar. She's still alive. Just. At 3:19 he telephones a neighbour for help. At 3:20 he calls the hospital. He is crying and sobbing. He carries her downstairs to the ground floor, but it's too late.
All indications are that she died en route to the bottom where they laid her body downstairs. She died at or about that point.
At 3:30, CCTV cameras record the police and ambulance arriving. At 3:55, Oscar Pistorius calls a friend, Justin Devaris, who'd introduced him to Riva. We've approached Justin Devaris several times, and on each occasion he's declined to take part in our programme. However, we have obtained a recording of the only interview that he has given with a reporter working for the Sunday People.
All he said to me was, there's been a terrible accident. Riva's been shot. I've shot Riva. And then the neighbour picked up the phone. The neighbour was already in the house, a young lady, and she said to me, no, it's true, Reva has been shot. It's not good. You must, can you come here?
He was 40 minutes away in Johannesburg and set off immediately to Pistorius' home near Pretoria.
By the time I got there was a whole lot of police there. The ambulance had already come and gone. It was already a crime scene. I wasn't allowed in the house. The door was open. I could see her lying at the bottom of the stairs, covered in towels. Oscar was being detained in the garage. He was totally incoherent. He just kept saying, I killed my baby. He called her my baba, my baby. God take me away. And he was sobbing the whole time.
Good morning, I'm Lynn O'Connor. We continue with our breaking news coverage of a shooting in Pretoria. Olympic and Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius has been taken into custody after he allegedly shot and killed a woman believed to be his girlfriend.
At home in Johannesburg, Reva Steenkamp's housemate Gina Myers receives a phone call.
I started screaming, "Where's Reva? Where is she? Where is she?" I was screaming because I knew, and she said, "Gee, I need you to sit down, there's been an accident." And I just carried on saying, "Where is she?" And then I started getting emotional, and then she said, "Gee, I'm sorry, there's been an accident." And she told me she was gone. I started screaming, and my dad came running, and my sister was running, and my mom came running, and I couldn't talk on the phone. I couldn't function. I know that I never ever want to relive anything like that again, because I would never wish that on my worst enemy. It was one of the worst phone calls I've ever received in my whole life.
Coverage of this tragic event has swamped the South African media. The level of interest, both national and international, in the events of that night and its aftermath is almost unprecedented. It's arguably the biggest story to come out of South Africa since the release of Nelson Mandela more than 20 years ago.
I was completely shocked by what happened, and I think that shock began to set in even more throughout the day as a fuller picture began to emerge, because the initial reports that we were hearing that were coming out were about the fact that Oscar Pistorius had shot his girlfriend thinking that she was an intruder. And then the police came out and gave an impromptu press conference outside his home.
We have also taken cognizance of the media reports during the course of the morning of an alleged break-in, or that the young lady was allegedly mistaken to be a burglar. Obviously, our forensic investigation is still ongoing. We're not sure where this report came from. It definitely didn't come from the South African Police Service.
And all of a sudden, the picture changed, and we began to think, well, maybe that's not the version. Maybe there's more to this. Maybe this isn't a tragedy. Perhaps there was intent. Perhaps there was a crime that was committed here.
If there was intent, what had happened to cause Oscar Pistorius to shoot dead Reva Steenkamp? A former law student whose photogenic looks were rocketing her to stardom. This year, she was the big new name in a celebrity reality show set in Jamaica.
You literally fall in love with Jamaica. You fall in love with being in love with love. It's just one love everywhere. But I'm going home with sort of a sweet taste in my mouth. I don't have any regrets. I don't have any bitterness. I take home with me so many amazing memories and things that are in here and that are in here that I'll treasure forever. But I think the way that you go out, not just your journey in life, but the way that you go out and you make your exit is so important. You either made an impact in a positive way or a negative way. But just maintain integrity and maintain class and just always be true to yourself. And I'm going to miss you all so much. And I love you very, very much.
She is just the most incredible, bubbly person. You could feel as soon as she walked into a room, as soon as she walked into anywhere, you could feel her presence. She just had this way about her. I promise you, if you had met her, you'd just say hello to her, and she had this smile. She had this beautiful, beautiful smile, and her eyes always lit up. She was very smart, and she had this way with words too. Every single time I was upset or I cried, I'd end up laughing. It was just her way making me happy and making people happy in general. Your immediate thoughts when you see someone that beautiful is it's impossible to have someone so magnificent on the inside as she is on the outside. But she really was.
Riva lived as part of the family with her best friend Gina Myers. The two girls were inseparable and were in constant contact.
Through the years, it was every single night I'd get a message from her saying, "Night, my G, I love you." Every single night.
I didn't meet anyone who had a bad word to say about Riva. Warren Lahoud went out with her for 5 years and they remained close.
She was really loving, she was giving, and that's what I'm gonna really miss. I mean, I can't pick up the phone and say hello and hear that warm voice of hers, and you know, that's the hardest part of this whole thing.
Local celebrity tattooist Pepe Dimevsky also knew her from her early days in Johannesburg.
I met Riva in my shop about actually maybe close to 5 years ago.
So how many tattoos of hers did you do?
I did two of her tattoos. The first one, it was a kind of long sentence, something like a poem on her back. The second one was writing on her ankle, says lioness. She was a great person. So, I mean, woman with such a big character and personality and charisma. She was an amazing person. I mean, slowly she became kind of famous in a model fashion industry, and yeah, she was exactly the same person. How I say, she was down to earth.
Down to earth, but in South African celebrity circles, Riva Steenkamp was on the rise. She started to receive invites to Johannesburg's round of promotional launches and award ceremonies. For the paparazzi, blonde model Riva Steenkamp was a natural target. 2012 was her breakthrough year, when she started to get noticed. She was on the cover of FHM, and soon she was on the radar of top-selling celebrity magazine, Heat.
I should go through a few of the pictures. She was always on the social scene. These are also some great exclusive photos of her playing with some puppies at Puppy Haven, a charity here in South Africa. And this was at her birthday party in August last year. With Riva, last year her name kept on popping up, and she kept on popping up at events and on the red carpet. And then this reality show happened. And then with the Oscar relationship, with him being one of the biggest stars in South Africa, that was when we decided, okay, you know, this girl is definitely, she's here now. She's beautiful. She's really lovely. She's a pleasure to work with. She's dating one of the biggest stars in the world. And that was kind of the moment where we decided, right, it's time to go with her and to follow her career.
Oscar and Riva, a huge and lucrative new media brand, was emerging, and Heat magazine wanted to own it.
Yeah, that's her and Oscar. This is quite a rare picture from a friend's engagement party.
Reporter Sonia Rath was assigned to stick close to Riva.
She was a breath of fresh air. She really was beautiful, as beautiful on the outside as she was inside. She would always make time for you, no matter what it was. She just, I keep saying, she had such a beautiful soul.
But Oscar and Riva had only started dating in November 2012. It was still early days.
They wanted to keep the relationship private for as long as possible and not do media for as long as possible because they didn't want the media to taint the relationship.
Obviously, the relationship was only a few months old, and that was one of the biggest factors as to why they didn't really want to come out with it as of yet, because it was still new. And she really didn't want anything to taint that.
Because we were pursuing them for this cover story and they had agreed, we still needed to get a date secured with them for the shoot.
To confirm the details of the photo shoot, the Heat team found a date which they could see both Oscar and Riva on, February the 7th. As it turns out, 7 days before Riva was killed.
The Sports Awards. This is one of the rare occasions where she walked the red carpet with Oscar. I was adamant that our journalists had to go because they were going to be there and to chat with them and to get more from them, to chat to them about the relationship and to secure a date for the photo shoot. And that's practically why we were there and why we interviewed them
she was very happy. She made a huge emphasis on how much she did adore him and admired him, and in what high esteem she held him. It was really lovely to see them together, and I think a beautiful model on the rise with one of our biggest sporting stars had great potential to be one of the golden couples in SA. I think once that they came out with their relationship, which would have been in our exclusive cover with them, it really would have escalated. They would have gotten a lot more attention, and it really would have been huge.
London 2012, the crowning glory of Oscar Pistorius. He makes history by becoming the first double-leg amputee to compete in the Olympics, before going on to become one of the stars of the Paralympics. It was the climax of a remarkable story, the gold medal runner born without fully formed legs, both amputated below the knee when he was just 11 months old.
When they were youngsters growing up, his mom always used to say to him and to his brother, "Your brother Carl puts his shoes on and you put your legs on. There's no difference between the two of you. Get out there and do it." And I think that the way his life started out was what drove him to where he is today, that he was able to just keep pushing himself and realize whatever an able-bodied person could do, I could do as well.
He allowed a BBC crew inside his house in the Silverwoods estate in 2009 and recalled his greatest influence, his devoted and determined mother, who never lived to see his success.
My mother was a huge influence on my life. You know, she never really told us what to do, but she gave us great guidelines, and you know, I really think in the situations that I've had since her passing, you know, I've really, the lessons that she taught me have really helped me to deal with those things. About 4 weeks before she passed away, she wrote me a letter, and in the letter she said, "Look after those legs that run so fast, train, don't strain." You know, and it was kind of like, you know, I wasn't even involved with athletics at the time, but I think she was a very wise woman, and you know, the lessons that she taught me definitely have helped me, you know, I think, and definitely inspired me in the last couple of years being an athlete.
Fast and getting faster. Meet Oscar Pistorius. On the track, they call him Blade Runner.
Oscar Pistorius was 17 with spots and braces when he won gold at the 2004 Paralympics in Athens. He used prosthetic blades called cheetahs, which gave him the nickname the Blade Runner. Remarkably, he'd only started athletics training 8 months before the Games, a regime that demanded the highest levels of grit and determination.
I train harder than any of the other guys do. I put in more hours, I eat better, I sleep better, I rest better, and overall I think I'm a more diligent, I train better than the other guys.
Now, Oscar, welcome.
Are you going to be the man to make history and compete in the Olympics?
He quickly became a favourite in television studios, friendly, polite, on his way to being an international sporting hero.
He's one of the real nice guys of the sport. Going to be hurting a little bit losing that 100, but he demonstrates just how good he is and why he comes here with such a big reputation.
But for Oscar Pistorius, it wasn't just about the Paralympics. He took on the world's top athletics authorities in a battle to compete against able-bodied athletes, and he won.
I think I've always been very confident in my ability as an athlete and in the kind of faith that my coach has had in me. So although there have been seasons where I've missed my targets and haven't made them, I've stayed dedicated and I haven't had any space for doubts in my mind.
He became a sponsorship magnet, a global multi-million-dollar icon.
And what about sponsors? Have you got a lot of sponsors?
Yeah, I've got some really good sponsors, you know, and they've been looking after me. I think most of the sponsors I'm with to date I've been with for a very long time, like Nike and Oakley, and a IT company called Cispro. There's a South African bank called Nedbank, and then you know, my biggest sponsor and the ones that look after me are Pirelli. You know, I've really been all the time we spend in Italy, and when I'm based there in most of the months in the European summer, they're really the company that really, you know, helps me out with a lot of the things that I do there.
And do you think the marketability of Paralympic athletes is a lot lower than Olympic athletes as a rule?
I think it has been in the past, but I think it's definitely stepping up.
Arriving at Oscar Pistorius' estate at 6 p.m. on February the 13th, these are the last pictures of Reeva Steenkamp alive, captured on security CCTV seemingly happy, smiling, and bringing with her the photo she had selected as his Valentine's present. Oscar Pistorius was filmed arriving 10 minutes afterwards. Later that night, Riva tweeted,
"What do you have up your sleeve for your love tomorrow?"
We've spoken to people who shared Riva's last 48 hours. The morning before, she'd been with her best friend, Gina Myers.
She was here. I was getting ready. I think I was doing my hair. And she was getting ready for a meeting and I was getting ready to go to work. And when she left, she told me I was going to be awesome and that she loved me. And then I ran out and then I gave her a hug and then she left.
Later that day, Riva met up with her ex-boyfriend, Warren Lahoud.
I saw Riva on the Tuesday, the 12th of February. She contacted me and we met up for a quick coffee, and that was it. And she seemed fine.
Oscar Pistorius telephoned Riva twice during their catch-up.
I said, "Is everything okay?" I mean, he's phoned twice already, every 20 minutes. I asked her that question. She said, "There's nothing wrong." She always told me that she wouldn't be with anybody that she felt unhappy with, or she wouldn't allow herself to be with somebody like that.
Gina Myers was in contact with Riva throughout the Tuesday and the Wednesday, February the 13th.
We generally chatted throughout the day. We had chatted in the morning and we had chatted during the afternoon. And even though I saw her in the morning and the evening, every day, we still spoke throughout the day. Phone calls, texts.
That evening, Riva texted home to say it was too late to drive back from Pretoria and she was going to stay over with Oscar.
My mum and dad don't really sleep unless they know that we're safe or where we are. So it's just a general rule, if you're going to sleep out or if wherever you are, just let us know. That was actually the first night in a while we hadn't said goodnight, I love you.
Oscar Pistorius says that in the early hours of Valentine's Day, he and Riva were asleep in his bedroom. Using plans of the property, we've recreated the scene in daylight to give you an idea of the layout of the bedroom and ensuite bathroom. Pistorius says it's crucial to remember that it was the middle of the night and dark. In his version of events, he was unusually on the left-hand side of the bed as we look at it here because he had a shoulder problem. He and Riva had swapped sides. We've used the words of his sworn testimony.
I woke up, went onto the balcony to bring the fan in and close the sliding doors, the blinds and the curtains. I heard a noise in the bathroom and realized that someone was in the bathroom.
Too scared to switch on the lights, he says he didn't put on his prosthetic legs but walked on his stumps towards the noise.
I grabbed my 9mm pistol from underneath my bed. On my way to the bathroom, I screamed the words to the effect for him or them to get out of my house and for Riva to phone the police. It was pitch dark in the bedroom and I thought Riva was in bed.
From the bathroom doorway, he says he sees an open window. He again hears noises. They're coming from behind the closed door of the separate toilet. He opens fire with his 9mm pistol.
I fired shots at the toilet door and shouted to Riva to phone the police. She did not respond, and I moved backwards out of the bathroom, keeping my eyes on the bathroom entrance. Everything was pitch dark in the bedroom, and I was still too scared to switch on a light. Riva was not responding. When I reached the bed, I realized that Riva was not in bed. That is when it dawned on me that it could have been her who was in the toilet. I returned to the bathroom, calling her name. I tried to open the toilet door, but it was locked. I rushed back into the bedroom and opened the sliding door, exiting onto the balcony, and screamed for help.
Only at this point, he says, does he turn on the light and put his prosthetic legs on, before returning to the bathroom to break down the toilet door with his cricket bat. A prominent specialist forensic pathologist, Reggie Perumal, was flown in by Oscar Pistorius' defence team to examine all the crime scene evidence and attend the autopsy.
Okay. She was shot in the region of her right hip. She was shot in the right arm, and she was shot in the head. There was also a shot on one of the fingers of the left hand. So whether there are 3 shots or 4 shots, it won't be easy to say at this stage.
He was, however, able to confirm one aspect of the defence case. She appeared to have gone to the toilet.
Most individuals would have had some urine in the bladder at 3 a.m. in the morning. In this case, the bladder was completely empty. We couldn't even get a mil or two for toxicology. That says that in all probability she voluntarily emptied her bladder because there was no evidence of urine on the scene itself.
During the 4-day bail hearing, the prosecution presented a very different version of events that night. Prosecution witnesses claims there were shouting and screaming coming from the house. The questions are who was shouting and screaming and at what time. One witness states that she heard non-stop fighting between 2 and 3 a.m. and then she heard gunshots. Another witness heard shots, saw lights on, and then 17 minutes later heard further gunshots. We've also been told that near neighbours only 50 metres away heard female screams followed by gunshots, followed by more screams. Pistorius' housekeeper, who lives behind the house, didn't hear any screams, apparently because there's a water feature close by which would have drowned out any other noise.
The prosecution says Oscar Pistorius got up from the bed, strapped on his prosthetic legs, armed himself and purposefully walked the 7 metres to the bathroom where Riva had locked herself in the toilet. She had apparently taken her mobile phone with her. The prosecution further alleged Pistorius wanted to kill. In the prosecutor's words, there's a big argument and you crack, you take out a gun and you fire. The police investigator called by the prosecution claims Oscar Pistorius was right inside the bathroom with his back to the basins when he started firing. Crucially, he says, he was shooting 1.5 metres from the toilet door. The 4 bullets had a downwards trajectory from a normal stance. So, he claims, he must have had his prosthetic legs on.
I have been to the scene, but unfortunately one very important aspect of the scene was not there. It was taken away. That is the door. The door is important to us and we really need to get access to it soonest because the trajectory of the projectiles through the door will give us a very good idea where the shotist was standing. All this will be tied up with the trajectory on the body of the deceased together with one bullet or projectile mark on one of the walls.
Despite the prosecution's reliance in court on Oscar Pistorius wearing his prosthetic legs, we've been told the new investigating team want to downplay this claim. They don't think they'll be able to prove it and think it should never have been mentioned by the prosecution.
The prosecution's main witness was the police investigator, Warrant Officer Botha. Much of his testimony was successfully challenged by the defence. First, he said that quarrelling had been heard by a witness who was 600 yards away. When people in the court laughed at that, he said that it may have been 300 yards. The witness didn't know whose voices she'd heard, and another witness got the number of shots wrong. His assertions about the bullet's trajectory were not backed up by forensic or ballistic evidence. Botha also admitted that he'd not worn protective shoes at the crime scene.
Botha was taken off the case after it was discovered that he too faces criminal charges relating to another shooting. He's now quit the force.
We've been told by a senior source that at the police station, while Oscar Pistorius was being interviewed and charged, officers told him that he could be facing a very long time in jail. Pistorius is said to have replied, "I'll survive, I always win."
I've come to the conclusion that the accused has made a case to be released on bail.
The Pistorius family have told us that they categorically deny he said those words to the police. He did get bail, the judge praising his detailed account, on condition that he doesn't return home or leave Pretoria. He's been banned from drinking and has had to pay a £75,000 bond. But the judge did raise 5 key questions.
He's in the middle. Why did the accused not ascertain the whereabouts of his girlfriend as he got out of bed? Why did the accused not seek to verify exactly who was in the toilet?
Why did Reva not scream back from the toilet? Why would you not escape through the bedroom door rather than venture further into danger? And the judge also questioned the explanation for why the couple had swapped sides of the bed that night.
I had a job last year. It was 2 hours away from here, and she didn't want me to drive by myself. So she came with me, and she decided we were going to make a road trip out of it. So she drove with me there and back, and she made this little picture frame and yeah, just capturing our road trip memory. That was fun.
This is her room?
Yeah, this is her room. It smelled so beautiful. The smell's gone. Her smell is gone. We used to come in here and just feel like you were in like a little cave with her, and it smelled beautiful, and her little lamp was always on, the bright lights were never on. It was very warm. It was very Reva. She made it very homey. Like just being in here, this is probably the longest time I spend in here. It's very hard for me. I'll come in here and I'll sit here for 2 minutes and then I leave. This was by far one of her favorite dresses. Yeah, she wore it to 1 or 2 functions, but I know she bought it off a shoot because she loved it so much. I think she did the shoot in Cape Town. But wow, and I remember the first night I saw her wear it, I was at the same function, and she came, her hair was like in curls, like blonde, beautiful. She looked amazing. We have to eventually pack them up and send them to her parents. At the moment, I can't. Every time it sets in, my heart breaks because I realize she's not coming back. And I realize that this whole nightmare I'm not going to wake up from.
The wealthy circle in South Africa can be tight-knit, but today it's divided over the innocence or guilt of Oscar Pistorius. Lining up in his defence are people who've known him all of his life. Mike Azzi, a friend of Oscar Pistorius' parents, has watched him grow up and has trained racehorses for him.
First horse we selected for him was Watchful, and she won him 5 races. All his horses he's owned have won for him, and he has a Group 1 winner as well to boot, so he's pretty lucky boy.
For Mike Azzi, there was always something special about the kid who battled against the odds.
I watched him as a kid in Form 2 playing rugby with the able-bodied guys in the school. And on the one day, they tackled him out of his prosthesis. And he jumped up and he said to the guy, "Look what you've done to me, look what you've done, you've broken my leg right off." And the guy got such a fright. And then Oscar patted him on the back and said, "Don't worry, mate." And he clipped his leg back on and carried on with the game. And I always thought, this is a special kid.
Adam Azzi, Mike's son, was at school with Oscar Pistorius and also testifies to his character.
Everything that's happened recently, it's hard to believe because it's a side of Oscar that I never really saw. I've always known him as a really compassionate and very affectionate person. He was always the one guy that wanted to give you a hug, give you a kiss, what's up. You know, he just was a close friend to everyone.
Did he ever talk to you about Reva?
I knew he'd been dating a girl that he was smitten over. But Reva in herself is an amazing young girl. She's a beautiful girl. Her family, I know the father, and they are amazing people. And just a tragedy about this poor girl because she was an amazing person.
How did you find out about what happened?
I was unfortunate enough to hear from my wife. I was coming off the track in the morning and she phoned me and she was beside herself and she was crying and said to me that Oscar had a terrible accident and his girlfriend was involved in a shooting.
And then when did you find out more details?
I went onto the news straight away and I kept following it and tried to get hold of Carl and the family, and they didn't take calls. So we've been battling. Obviously, I can understand where they're coming from. This kid must be besides himself.
Front cover of Time magazine. Wow,
just very powerful. Oscar Pistorius, the headline, Man, Superman, Gunman. Oscar Pistorius in South Africa's culture of violence.
The shock is felt everywhere. Sports journalist Graham Joffe has known Pistorius man and boy, but believes that along the way, something's changed.
Incredible journey. When I think I met him for the first time probably 10 years ago. It was soon after his mother passed away. And I just met this incredible, humble kid who had the world at his feet. Amazing kid, just the drive, the positiveness. I was in awe of him. I thought, what an incredible person. A kid that's got this disability, doesn't let it get him down. It was the real Oscar. And then sadly, over the years, I think as more as fame and success and money came into his life, I saw a very different Oscar.
A very different Oscar, surrounded by the trappings of celebrity. The racehorses, the high-performance motors, even 2 white tigers. And the guns. He was building up a collection and had applied to license 6 specialist firearms.
There's no shortage of people who will tell you what a fantastic and inspirational individual Oscar Pistorius is, a truly global icon. But as I travel around South Africa, there are some who question his well-crafted media image. A darker side of the man is starting to emerge.
First, the stories of recklessness. Aged 19, he nearly killed himself in a car crash, driving 400 miles through the night to settle what he describes was a blistering row with an ex-girlfriend. He fell asleep at the wheel. He's admitted that he was unforgivably stupid. In February 2009, aged 23, more recklessness. He crashed his speedboat into a submerged pier, smashed his face to bits and was airlifted to hospital. Weeks later, in his BBC Inside Sport interview, he detailed his extensive injuries.
And actually, in this picture is probably the best one to describe it. You can hear, out of all these CAT scans and MRIs and stuff, you can actually see where the doctors have highlighted several here, and they've got where I broke my cheekbone here, and I broke the floor bone of my eye, and here I broke part of my nose. There I broke the bridge off my nose. I had my jaw wide on. That came off last week, and since then I've been eating steak literally every single day.
Next, stories of aggressive behaviour. In September 2009, Pistorius was arrested at a neighbour's party, held in custody and charged with assaulting a girl who had a door slammed in her face. In the end, no action was taken.
And I told her to get off the property, and I was actually on the way to the police station to just open a report, and they'd already arrived at my house, so it was a bit of a mass confusion, and it ended up just turning completely sour. And the next morning, I had to spend the night in jail, which I never ever thought I would have to do.
But the word was on the street that Oscar Pistorius was attracting trouble. Riva's tattooist Pepe Demevski had heard the rumours.
Everyone hear bad stories about him, not such a good stories. The people I bump to or hear from. Even a friend of mine, Mark Batchelor, the football player, had issues with him. They speak on the phone and Oscar threatened him that he's going to break his legs. That's actually ridiculous.
Could that be true? Did Oscar Pistorius really say he would break someone's legs? The man he's supposed to have made the phone call to is Mark Batchelor, an ex-professional footballer. He agreed to see me and confirmed that last November there'd been a row over one of Oscar's ex-girlfriends.
You mentioned your run-in with Oscar. Can you talk me through exactly what happened?
Yeah, my phone rang and it's Oscar. What's your effing problem with me, boy? So I told him I'm not your boy, and we had a few words, and then he started threatening me and telling me how he's going to F me up and break my legs, and I was basically laughing because, and this is not being disrespectful or rude to anybody, but Oscar, he doesn't have any legs. What is he going to do? I'm double his size. I do a bit of boxing. I'm not scared to take on anybody, but I'll never ever do that. If I had to do something to Oscar, what am I? I'm a bully, and so I actually laughed it off.
Then Oscar Pistorius went to the police to say that it was him who'd been threatened by Mark Batchelor. The police interviewed both men, but decided the matter should be dropped. The same day I met him, Mark Batchelor was interviewed by police. He says that several other prominent, wealthy South Africans are also helping police with their inquiries into the Pistorius case. In January this year, weeks before Riva Steenkamp was shot dead, there was a gunshot incident involving Pistorius at a restaurant in Johannesburg. A firearm went off under a table, narrowly missing someone's foot. A friend took the blame.
There have been new rumours and hearsay about aspects of this case coming out almost every day. Most of them have not been borne out by the evidence that's been made public so far. Riva Steenkamp did not sustain injuries by being beaten with a cricket bat. She was not pregnant. Contrary to what the police first said, there was no testosterone found in the house, and only one gun was found in the house, a 9mm pistol.
Right, week 3, here we go in Super 15, Friday, 8:30, Blues against Crusaders.
Yeah, absolutely the biggest game of the weekend, you know.
But while there are rumours, there are genuine concerns, even among those who count themselves as close to Oscar Pistorius.
All the home teams.
There were signs. In the last 5 years, there were incidents that have happened, that things that felt like the bubble was about to burst.
Who was making these things disappear?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, the allegations of how some of these cases did disappear. You know, they disappeared very quickly, whether it be the media, whether it be on the management side, because no sponsor wants to be involved with somebody who's got something, you know, this kind of, allegations against him of some kind of, whether it be verbal or physical abuse. So at the end of the day, these things did disappear very quickly. Now, as I said, no one wanted to dig deeper into Oscar Pistorius. How tough, you know, as I said before, how tough it's been for him with a disability to be able to fight for the right to run with able-bodied athletes. His whole life has been a fight.
When Oscar Pistorius spoke out at the Paralympics criticising a rival who'd beaten him when wearing longer prosthetics, Graham Joffe felt the athlete had gone too far.
The incidents in the Paralympics for me was the last straw. I really believe that outburst was after so much was bubbling under. And I just felt that it was a case of sour grapes. It just, for me, it didn't come across like the real Oscar, the way that he behaved when he lost at the Paralympic Games.
Just because there were 1 or 2 stories in the past about Oscar that weren't positive doesn't mean there's something brewing, you know, behind the scenes. Maybe there is, but we don't know that. The fact that somebody, you know, dropped an assault charge or that he was, you know, crashed a boat because he was drunk, like, none of that is proof that this man was capable of shooting somebody and killing them purposefully. I would hate to make a judgment like that. And I think everybody's trying to dig now, and they're trying to see, were there signs? I don't think it's fair to do that.
Adam Azzi, who's known Pistorius since their school days, believes that for a top-flight athlete, his behaviour is normal.
There have been reports in the press previously about a kind of darker side to Oscar. What did you make of that?
I wouldn't say a darker side. I think if people want to say it's an aggressive side, I would say every young man's got an aggressive side to him, no more than you or me. I didn't ever see it as a bad side. I always thought that his aggression was what fueled his success, to be as competitive as he was as an athlete.
Oscar Pistorius' defence rests on fear. Fear, he says, he had for his own safety and Riva's. Rates of violent crime and murder are high in South Africa. Like Oscar Pistorius, millions protect themselves with guns.
South Africans, no matter where they live, no matter what their background, have been subjected to an onslaught of crime for many years, and as a result of which they've taken the need to defend themselves as seriously as they possibly can, given the limitations. Even in a high security estate, you may not be entirely secure. Some people might feel the need to sleep with as you put it, a gun under their beds.
Riva Steenkamp also knew how to handle a gun. After one session, she posted on Instagram.
Shooting games this morning. I feel less stressed now.
The reality of South Africa is that we are a society which has a disproportionately high rate of crime against civilians, And yeah, you can either be you can either live in that society and take whatever precautions are that you possibly can to prevent it happening to you, or live in fear. It's a reality of life in South Africa. We are where we are.
Across South Africa, people have fled open residential areas for the sort of gated, high-security estates where Oscar Pistorius lived.
So we're just driving around the outside of the Silverwoods compound now, and the most striking thing from here anyway is the height of the perimeter walls and the electrified wire that runs along the top of them. You can't really see anyone getting in there. There's also security guards sort of dotted around the edge. That seems to be true of all of the neighbouring compounds as well.
Silverwoods has a reputation of being as secure as it comes, complete with dogs, patrol cars, a biometric identification entry system and a fully wired anti-intruder wall.
As you can see, we've got a standard electric fence according to South African rules and laws that you can do. It's maximum voltage. It's got earth loops to prevent anybody tampering with it. It's got an alarm on it. And then we've got the beams to protect the fence as well. You put your finger on here and it reads your fingerprint, and only the fingerprints loaded onto the system will allow residents to gain access to the estate. It's recording the number plates, recording your face, and there's some other cameras around recording movement of people coming in and out of the estate. In the last 3 years we had 4 incidents, of which the last one was November 2011. And since then we put measures in place to try and mitigate that risk.
Protected by the fortress-like security, this was Oscar Pistorius in happier times at home. But there are many stories about his readiness to draw a gun here. He tweeted last November,
"Nothing like getting home to hear the washing machine on and thinking it's an intruder, to go into full combat recon mode into the pantry."
He told one interviewer he felt most vulnerable when in bed without his prosthetics on. Dexter Azzi, who's known Pistorius from school, stayed at the house one night and saw how twitchy he was about security.
It was quite a hot evening, so I woke up to put a fan on, and after bumping it over, it made quite a loud bang. So I think within a minute he ran outside, and he didn't have his prosthetic legs on, he was on his stumps, and he had his 9mm in his hand, and he asked if everything was all right. And I responded yes, and then he went back into his room. In this country, a lot of people do sleep with their guns under their pillows or beside their beds. So I didn't picture it as irregular in the sense of in South African context. So that's why I didn't really question him about it.
Riva Steenkamp was herself once a law student. So as South Africa prepares for its biggest criminal trial in years, I went to find out what law students at Pretoria University make of the case. For them, violence in society is a central issue.
Do any of you live or have relatives or whatever who live in these kind of highly secure estates? And because that's kind of the norm, isn't it now?
That's pretty normal, actually. Everyone has to have real high levels of security. Almost everyone has alarm, electric fence,
beams
barbed
outside.
wire.
When I'm home alone, I walk around with a panic button in my hand. Like, I'm just saying, it's bad.
This lady was shaking her head about the idea that you have to...
Why so extreme? It's bad because if you hear the stories that are just all around you, it doesn't even make the news anymore, because just like...
Our neighbor got shot and raped. Like, she got killed with a screwdriver, 5 years ago.
I think the government of South Africa hasn't done enough to try to curb the crime. It's there, but they're not doing that much, because if you start listening to such gruesome crimes that have been happening, just barely a week, as she said, barely a week, a girl was raped, another one was decapitated, and her family was raped and killed, and that is just nothing.
You do get scared, you do panic. Hearing all these stories happening in all these areas, you do think it could also happen to me at any time, any place. You have to be safe. You have to try and keep yourself safe.
If a criminal wants to break into your house, I don't care how much security you have there, they will make a plan to get in.
I imagine that you feel there's an onus on yourselves to protect you. You look after yourself. With that in mind, would any of you carry guns on your person?
I would. I wouldn't. I would. The stories that you hear of people getting shot by their own gun, and I think if you, like, so how scared I am if I now know, okay, I have a gun in my handbag, cool, I can do anything, then you immediately subject yourself to more danger.
So what have you all made of the Pistorius case?
I was shocked and immediately a bit disappointed because he's a national hero, and I think a lot of the South Africans share my opinion and felt the same emotion.
I couldn't believe how South Africans were quick to jump and believe that he was guilty without there having been any evidence proved at all.
It's unlawful, intentionally killing of another human being, and a human being died. Was it unlawful? Was it self-defense? You'll have a hard time proving self-defense. Intentionally was 4 shots were fired.
His story in his affidavit, it just didn't check out for me. There was just too many loopholes. He went into the bedroom too many times and yet he still didn't notice that she was not in bed.
I think it also puts pressure on the government and the state. I think that's where they're also getting it wrong. They rushed the case. To me, they rushed the case. If I was, based on an objective view, if that was the actual case, Pistorius would have walked.
Because of his achievements, people automatically kind of assume, okay, Oscar Pistorius is a hero, you know, look what he overcame, he doesn't have legs, and see what he's doing now, but that doesn't make him a good person.
His case is not only a shock for us, but it's drawing international media attention for us as well. So the case needs to be handled properly because now our criminal justice system is in the spotlight.
Apart from looking whether he is guilty or not, a stigma will always hang around him, you know. Even if he gets free now, he will walk past people and people will like, hey, you're the guy that shot your girlfriend. You know, or people, when he goes to jail, people will sympathize with him and be like, no, Oscar would have never done that. So whatever happens to him, the rest of his life is screwed, basically.
This is Waterkloof, an upmarket suburb of Pretoria. As a condition of his bail, Oscar Pistorius is staying in this house, his Uncle Arnold's house, at least until the start of his trial, which is at the beginning of June. I'm going to see if I can get an answer on the buzzer if I'm allowed to. Can I just... Please. The guards have obviously been briefed not to let anyone approach the house or try and get in or speak to anyone, and I think it's best not to push them any further.
In South Africa, media coverage of the case has been unrestrained. There will be no jury at Oscar Pistorius' murder trial. A judge alone will pass verdict. The bail hearing has forced the athlete to give his version of events, which is sworn testimony, and will therefore be difficult to change if new evidence is presented. As Oscar Pistorius' image is dismantled worldwide and his sponsorships cancelled, he's being forced to sell everything to build up a war chest for the battles ahead.
He's selling off all his properties and everything because obviously the legal costs are going to run into millions of rands. So he's trying to make sure that he has cash available so that he can be able to sort out his attorneys and pay for his legal fees.
The man Oscar Pistorius calls Uncle Mike has taken on the sad task of selling off the racehorses. He's been talking to Oscar a lot in recent days.
He has no confidence in his tone of voice. He's just a man that, almost like someone that's walking around in circles and doesn't know where he's going. He just always seems to mention Riva and to ask us to pray for her and her family. But most of all, I said to him, he's got to understand that we are here for him and we will always be his friends. I would say, just speaking to him, that he's a broken man, and I would go as far as to say that he would be on the verge of suicide. It really worries me.
His family deny that he is suicidal.
I've returned to London to finish this film, but information continues to reach us from the top of the investigation. Police tell us that they're looking at a massive number of texts on Riva's iPhone. They've also requested all records of phone calls and messages sent and received by Oscar and Riva that night. Police also tell us that they will not enter into a plea bargain for any lesser charge, which strongly suggests that they will continue to pursue the charge of premeditated murder, which means that Oscar Pistorius, if found guilty, could face life. A straightforward charge of murder would carry 15 years. The team defending the Paralympic champion still insists that it was a tragic accident and that the true story will all be revealed during the court case. They also say that Oscar is distraught. Riva Steenkamp's family want her to be remembered as the bright, beautiful daughter
that was the star of a new reality TV show. They authorised the broadcast tribute to Riva, which seems like a fitting way to end this documentary.
I think the way that you go out, not just your journey in life, but the way that you go out and you make your exit is so important. You either made an impact in a positive way or a negative way. But just maintain integrity and maintain class and just always be true to yourself.
And I want her to be remembered for the heart that she had and for the way she believed in love and life. I want people to just remember her and just embrace what she was about and what she wanted to live for.
And I'm going to miss you all so much. And I love you very, very much.